Nobody believes in Los Angeles anymore, and perhaps they never will again. There was a time when this city's name alone sparked dreams, when its golden boulevards promised transformation, when the very mention of Los Angeles meant possibility incarnate. Today, that same name evokes resignation, disillusionment, even disgust. What happened to the city that once defined the American dream itself? How did we arrive at this breaking point where nobody, absolutely nobody, trusts that Los Angeles can recover its former glory? The answer isn't found in a single policy failure or one corrupt politician. The answer lies in 9 unmistakable signs that reveal something far deeper, something no city official wants to admit, but everyone already senses. The project is dead, and what remains is merely the echo of what once was greatness. Remember how it used to be. Los Angeles wasn't just a city, it was the city. The place where dreamers from every corner of the world came to reinvent themselves, where anything seemed possible if you worked hard enough, where the sun always shone and opportunity knocked on every palm-lined street. Generations grew up watching Los Angeles define culture itself, from Hollywood's golden age to the music revolution of the 60s, from the architectural innovation of mid-century modern to the tech boom that promised to rival Silicon Valley. These weren't just economic milestones. They were proof that Los Angeles represented something transcendent, that this sprawling metropolis could cultivate genius, that it deserved its place as one of the world's truly great cities. The beaches stretched endlessly. The mountains rose majestically in the background, and between them lay a vast canvas where millions wrote their stories of success, reinvention, and belonging. Every neighborhood had character. Every district had pride. And though problems existed, there was something about the relentless optimism of this place that made you believe solutions were always just around the corner. But something changed. Not overnight, but slowly, like a creeping disease that erodes from within, until one day you wake up and nothing is the same anymore. The first sign that the project was dying came when quality of life stopped mattering as much as optics. Yes, optics, because while other cities around the nation were addressing their fundamental challenges with genuine policy innovation, investing in infrastructure that actually worked, creating environments where middle-class families could thrive, Los Angeles became obsessed with image management. The billboards grew bigger and shinier, even as the streets beneath them crumbled. The ribbon-cutting ceremonies multiplied for projects that would take decades to complete or never finish at all. The city transformed from a place that solved problems into a stage where politicians performed solutions while real issues festered in the shadows. Press conferences announced bold initiatives that sounded impressive but delivered nothing tangible. And while the publicity machine churned out feel-good stories about Los Angeles' resilience and innovation, actual residents struggled with realities that contradicted every optimistic headline. And while the image was carefully curated, the reality was collapsing. Second sign, mediocrity became normalized. We started accepting conditions that would have sparked outrage a generation ago. We started tolerating dysfunction that previous eras would have fixed immediately. We started justifying failures that once would have cost careers and demanded accountability. Traffic that turns a 10-mile commute into a 90-minute ordeal became just the price of living here. Schools that fail to educate became acceptable if they at least kept kids off the streets. Crime that makes people afraid to walk their own neighborhoods after dark became a statistic to spin rather than a crisis to solve. But the most devastating part wasn't the decline itself, it was the collective shrug that accompanied it. Before, a major infrastructure failure would have been a scandal that dominated headlines for months and forced immediate action. Now, when another water main bursts, or another freeway collapses, or another public system fails catastrophically, we get a press release promising investigations, and a few days later, everyone moves on, because outrage fatigue has set in so deeply that nothing shocks us anymore. Mediocrity stopped being unacceptable and became the baseline expectation. And when mediocrity normalizes, when decline becomes routine, the project isn't just struggling, it's already dead. Third sign, and perhaps the most painful, the people who built this city no longer recognize it. There's an unfathomable difference between natural evolution and complete transformation into something unrecognizable. Every city changes over time. That's healthy and inevitable. But what happened to Los Angeles wasn't gradual adaptation, it was wholesale abandonment of the values and systems that made it work. The generations who grew up here, who invested their lives building businesses and raising families and contributing to communities, increasingly find themselves strangers in their own neighborhoods. Streets they walked safely for 40 years are now dangerous after sunset. Shops that served as community anchors for decades close permanently, replaced by nothing or by something that contributes zero to local fabric. Parks that were gathering places become encampments that families avoid. The implicit social contract that once governed public spaces, the unwritten rules that allowed millions of diverse people to coexist peacefully, shattered so completely that many areas feel lawless. And these aren't just nostalgic complaints from people resistant to change. These are objective assessments from residents who watched their quality of life systematically destroyed while being told they should celebrate progress. Fourth sign. The leadership lives in an alternate reality. While residents scream desperately for actual solutions, while data reveals the same systemic failures year after year, city officials continue repeating empty rhetoric about plans and processes and asking for patience with work they claim to be doing. But what work? Where are the results of these supposed plans? Why do we keep seeing the same problems get worse month after month, year after year, administration after administration? The truth is that Los Angeles governance became an insulated class where decisions aren't made based on what actually improves residents' lives, but on what protects political careers, satisfies special interests, and maintains a status quo that benefits a connected few while condemning millions to declining standards. They commission studies that recommend actions they never take. They announce initiatives that sound transformative but lack any mechanism for accountability. They blame external factors, previous administrations, insufficient funding, anything except their own failed leadership. And when things inevitably worsen, they find convenient scapegoats among lower-level staff or claim they need more time or insist that without their efforts, things would be even worse. The alternate reality is comfortable. The alternate reality insulates them from consequences, and as long as they can maintain their positions and pensions, the actual state of the city matters far less than their ability to manage perceptions. Fifth sign, the talent is leaving and taking the future with them. Los Angeles always had brain drain and brain gain in equal measure, a constant flow of ambitious people coming and going. But the balance shifted dramatically. The ambitious young professionals who once flocked here for opportunity now bypass Los Angeles entirely for cities where their salaries can actually afford decent housing, where they don't spend 3 hours daily commuting, where public services function and streets feel safe. The established professionals and families who spent decades building roots are selling everything and relocating to places that offer what Los Angeles once did but can no longer provide. We're not talking about a few disgruntled people. We're witnessing systematic exodus of the productive tax base, the entrepreneurs who create jobs, the families who stabilize neighborhoods, the talent that drives innovation. And they're being replaced by two groups: the ultra-wealthy who can afford to insulate themselves from the city's failures in gated communities with private security, and the desperately poor who have nowhere else to go. The middle disappears, and with it goes the very foundation that made Los Angeles function as a real city rather than a collection of extremes. Young talent looking at Los Angeles doesn't see opportunity anymore. They see a declining city with costs that far exceed benefits. That perception didn't emerge from marketing failures. It emerged from observable reality. The sixth sign cuts even deeper. We lost our cultural authority. There was an era when Los Angeles defined cool, when trends started here and spread worldwide, when artists and creators had to make it in LA to legitimize their careers. That cultural primacy was built over generations through genuine creative output, through industries that attracted the world's best and gave them platforms to excel, through a lifestyle that others envied and tried to emulate. Today, that authority evaporated. Now we're seen as a cautionary tale, a city whose best days are clearly behind it. A place that coasts on reputation built decades ago, while producing little that matters in contemporary culture. The entertainment industry that once made Los Angeles the creative capital of the world is fragmenting and relocating to places with better tax incentives and lower costs. The music scene that birthed genre-defining movements feels tired and derivative. The art world that once centered on LA galleries now focuses elsewhere. Even our signature optimism, that infectious belief that tomorrow would be better than today, curdled into cynical acceptance that decline is permanent. When other cities look at Los Angeles now, they don't see a model to emulate. They see mistakes to avoid. That loss of respect didn't happen because of bad marketing. It happened because we stopped earning it. Seventh sign, the people who love this city most are giving up. For generations, Angelenos were irrationally loyal to their city, capable of defending it against any criticism, able to find hope even in the darkest moments. That stubborn faith was unshakable generation after generation, but even the deepest wells of patience eventually run dry, and those limits have been exceeded. Today, even the most devoted residents struggle to defend the indefensible. Even the optimists admit things aren't getting better. Even those who invested everything in Los Angeles question whether they made the right choice. The shift isn't about fair-weather fans abandoning ship at the first sign of trouble. It's about rational human beings recognizing that their loyalty has been exploited rather than honored, that their tax dollars have been wasted rather than invested wisely, that their patience has been taken for granted rather than respected. People are tired, exhaustively tired of paying premium prices for substandard services, of making excuses for inexcusable failures, of believing promises that never materialize. And this isn't disloyalty or lack of civic pride, this is dignity. This is people finally accepting that loving a place doesn't require accepting its dysfunction, that you can care deeply about Los Angeles while also admitting it's failing. The day the faithful stop believing isn't because they're fickle or ungrateful, it's because what they're being sold is so deficient that even love can't overcome disappointment. Eighth sign, there's no genuine accountability. In any functional system, when results are consistently terrible, there's honest evaluation of what's failing, identification of who's responsible, implementation of structural changes based on objective analysis. But Los Angeles doesn't operate under those principles of transparency and consequences. Every failure gets explained with superficial excuses. We didn't have enough funding. The problem is more complex than it appears. We inherited this mess from previous leadership. We need more time to see results. Never do we hear admission that the approach itself is fundamentally flawed, that the people making decisions are incompetent or corrupt, that the systems in place cannot possibly work no matter how much time or money gets thrown at them. Never do we see officials take full responsibility and resign when their policies fail spectacularly. Never do heads roll the way they should when year after year produces the same preventable disasters. This absence of accountability isn't just irresponsible, it's insulting. It tells millions of residents who witnessed every failure, who suffered through every decline, that their observations and criticisms don't matter, because the people in charge know better and deserve trust despite proving repeatedly they don't deserve it. And we arrive at the ninth and final sign, the most definitive. We no longer have a coherent vision. Ask anyone knowledgeable about urban planning what Los Angeles is trying to become, and they won't know how to answer. Are we building density or preserving neighborhoods? Prioritizing cars or public transit? Focusing on tourism or livability for residents? Investing in traditional industries or pivoting to new economies? Supporting middle-class families or accepting that only the wealthy and poor can afford to stay? The answers to all these fundamental questions are muddled because there simply is no coherent plan. We see initiatives launched with grand announcements about transforming the city, but within months they're quietly shelved or so diluted by compromise that they accomplish nothing. We see policies that directly contradict each other, implemented simultaneously by different departments with no coordination. We see a city without identity, without clear direction, without any through line connecting past to present to future. And a city without vision isn't a city in transition, it's a city adrift.
It's a municipality that lurches from crisis to crisis, implements whatever seems politically expedient in the moment, and hopes somehow things will work out without any actual strategy to make them work out. That's not governing, that's hope. And hope without action is just waiting for collapse. So here we are, watching something we loved crumble before our eyes.
9 signs that don't lie. 9 symptoms of a terminal patient that nobody wants to officially declare dead, but whose pulse is barely detectable. And the saddest part isn't that the project is dead. The saddest part is that those with power to revive it have neither the will nor the capability to do so. They prefer maintaining the charade, continuing to collect their generous salaries, continuing to announce initiatives that sound impressive but deliver nothing, continuing to sell the illusion that next year things will improve when everyone knows they won't. Because real change would require admitting mistakes, would require sacrificing personal interests for collective good, would require making brave and risky decisions that could cost them their comfortable positions. And that, quite simply, will not happen. Does this mean we should abandon hope completely? Perhaps yes, perhaps no.
Maybe the only way for genuine change to occur is for the current system to collapse so thoroughly that it becomes financially and politically impossible to continue with the existing model, that public apathy becomes so absolute that the revenue streams dry up, that pressure from below becomes so unbearable that complete structural renovation from the foundation up becomes the only option. But that process will be long and agonizing, will require an entire generation to accept they won't see Los Angeles recover in their lifetime, that their sacrifice will be so future generations might, just might, be able to experience what we experienced when we still believed. Because there was a time when we believed. A time when every new development project brought renewed hope, when every election felt like an opportunity for transformation, when every challenge seemed surmountable if we just worked together. That time is gone. It took with it the dreams of millions, left in its place the scars of disillusionment and the bitter taste of what could have been but never was. Today, when someone asks if you believe in Los Angeles, the honest answer for most is no. Not because we're bad residents, not because we don't love this city, but because the place that should represent the best of what we can build together became instead a reflection of everything that's wrong. Corruption, accepted mediocrity, wasted potential, absence of accountability, prioritization of money and power over dignity and quality of life. The 9 signs are there, evident to anyone willing to see them. The project is dead, and until it's officially buried so something new can be built from scratch, we'll remain in this cruel limbo where we pretend everything is fine when in reality, everything is broken. We'll continue seeing initiatives without impact, announcements without substance, problems getting predictably worse. We'll keep hearing empty promises from officials who never face consequences, and reformers who arrive with hope but leave defeated by a system bigger than them. And meanwhile, other cities that were once behind us surpassed us long ago. Phoenix built genuine infrastructure while we talked about it. Austin created an environment where creative talent actually wants to live, while we coasted on past reputation. Nashville attracted the industries and workers we're losing by offering what we no longer can: functional government, reasonable cost of living, quality of life that matches the price tag. Even cities that faced worse challenges than Los Angeles managed to implement real reforms because their leadership actually prioritized results over optics. Los Angeles has more wealth, more resources, more natural advantages than almost any city on earth, but we lack the only thing that truly matters: political will to make hard choices and competent execution of necessary reforms. How much longer will we stay in denial? How many more generations of Angelenos will see their quality of life deteriorate before someone with actual power decides to do something fundamentally different? How many more families need to flee? How many more businesses need to close? How many more neighborhoods need to become unlivable before we admit that what we're doing doesn't work and never will work? The answers should be obvious. But in Los Angeles, nothing is obvious when there are political careers and financial interests at stake. So maybe this isn't the end. But it's definitely the end of something, the end of innocence, the end of blind faith, the end of the era when we could convince ourselves we were fine when clearly we weren't. Nobody believes in Los Angeles anymore because there are no reasons to believe. And until there are real reasons, not speeches or promises, but concrete actions and verifiable results, that disbelief isn't just justified, it's the only rational position possible. The 9 signs tell a story we don't want to hear, but desperately need to hear. They tell the story of how something valuable gets destroyed, not from lack of resources or potential, but from lack of vision, from lack of genuine commitment, from lack of will to do what's right even when it's difficult. They tell the story of institutions that betrayed the trust of millions by prioritizing short-term political gains over long-term livability. They tell the story of leaders who forgot that governing is about serving people, not managing perceptions. They tell the story of a city that turned a collective dream into a cautionary tale. And as long as these 9 signs continue being ignored, as long as there's no radical and profound change in how Los Angeles operates from its roots, the project will remain dead. They could hire the most brilliant urban planners in the world. They could attract billions in investment. They could build the most impressive infrastructure projects imaginable. But none of it will matter if the mentality, the culture, the way decisions get made remains the same that brought us to this point of decay. The question is no longer whether we can be great again. The question is whether we actually want to be. Because returning to greatness requires sacrifices that current leadership seems unwilling to make. Requires setting ego aside, admitting failures, listening to criticism, implementing changes that will be unpopular among those who benefit from the current system. Requires thinking about the long-term good of Los Angeles above the short-term interests of those who administer it. And if recent history has taught us anything, that won't happen voluntarily. So perhaps the only real hope lies in complete collapse, in the system self-destructing so thoroughly that there's no choice but to rebuild from zero with new people, new ideas, new priorities. It will be painful, it will be humiliating, it will take decades, but maybe that's the only path to genuine resurrection. Meanwhile, we'll remain here, those of us who once believed with every fiber of our being. We'll keep watching from the emotional distance that disappointment builds, without the passion of before, but unable to leave completely, because something inside still remembers how it felt to believe. We'll keep waiting, not for the next initiative or the next election, but for the day when someone with genuine power and genuine vision decides that enough is enough, that Los Angeles deserves better, that our children deserve to experience what we experienced when this city was a source of authentic pride rather than permanent embarrassment. That day may never come. But if it does, if ever comes the moment when the 9 signs of death are finally addressed, when a real project is built on the ruins of the current one, when we see decisions based on merit rather than political convenience, when leaders actually face consequences for failure and rewards for success, when residents have reasons to believe again, not from blind faith, but from tangible evidence, then and only then can we say the project resurrected. Until that day, if it ever comes, we'll live in this strange limbo where everyone knows the patient is dead, but nobody wants to say it out loud, where we'll keep announcing initiatives without soul, implementing policies without impact, watching decline without surprise, where the question is no longer when we'll be great again, but whether we ever truly were, or if those were just isolated moments of glory amid decades of systematic mediocrity. The 9 signs don't lie. The diagnosis is clear. The project is dead. And nobody, absolutely nobody who's honest with themselves believes it will change soon. But perhaps, just perhaps, admitting that painful truth is the necessary first step so that someday, in some distant future, we can believe again. Not with the naivety of before, but with the conviction of those who saw the ashes and witnessed the rebirth. If that day comes, all this pain will have been worth it. If it doesn't, at least we'll know it wasn't for lack of potential or passion among the people of Los Angeles, but from the betrayal of those who had the responsibility to steward something greater than themselves and chose not to. That's the truth nobody wants to say, but everyone feels. Nobody believes in Los Angeles anymore because there's nothing left to believe in. And until that changes from the roots, we'll remain here, silent witnesses to a funeral nobody wants to make official, but everyone is attending.